Because in the beginning, when I was afraid of being salesy, in the beginning when I was afraid they were always going to say no, and I would go through all these different things, I finally found a flow for myself when it came to the discovery call. What's wrong with me? Oh, page 34 for you guys, I think?
33.
33, yeah, 33.
So you wanted this recorded? Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I still know what I'm doing. See, now I'm going to get all complicated. No, I'm just kidding. So basically, I will not see a client without doing a discovery call. And if you, we don't have my website up now, but if you go to my website, it's everywhere. Start with a free 30-minute consultation. And in my reel, I say that as well, because that's something else we wanted to focus on today, and I don't know if we're going to have enough time. But someone then books it through my website, they booked a discovery call, it's 30 minutes. Sometimes I go over 30 minutes. Let's go through the steps first, and then I'll do a role play. I think this is one of the crucial steps. I don't want you guys to get confused, because right now on Instagram and Facebook, there are all these people advertising, stop doing discovery calls. I think, no, I'm not going to do that, because it is how I introduce myself and how I find out whether my client is somebody I can work with. And I really want to stress, if this person is somebody I don't feel like I can work with, I will refer them on. Okay? Because if the dynamic isn't right, I'm just doing them a disservice. So if I usually can tell by the dynamic who else I could send them to that they would be a better fit for. Okay, so it allows you to meet your prospective client and work out if they're somebody you can work with. So first thing I do is, what do you need help with? How can I help you? Basically, I'm curious about what made you call me today. And sometimes I'll say that. What made you pick up the phone and call me today? Oh, well, like the guy the other day, he said Dan did. At first I didn't understand who he was talking about, and I was like, who? And he goes, Dan. And I said, oh, okay. And was there a reason Dan suggested you call me? And he said, I have anger issues. And then I got immediately who he was talking about, and I laughed, and I said, of course Dan told you to come to me. And he laughed, and he said, Dan said you would say that. I was like, well, see the rapport that's already built? We're 4 questions in. Yeah. Now that doesn't happen all the time, but I do always ask, what do they need help with? Then I spend 5 to 10 minutes of that 30 minutes just what Carolyn had explained to you guys. I am asking questions, and I am taking notes. I have a remarkable Carolyn has, and one of the things that I do when I set up the Remarkable, I used to do it when I had intake sheets. If I was using paper, I would write the person's name, the date, and in really big letters, discovery call. And they would start talking, and I'm taking notes. And I'm listening, and I go, oh, okay. And what about, and what does that mean to you? And how often has that been happening? And I keep it to a 5 or 10 minute period, okay? But it is mostly all questions about them. We're not even talking about a solution at this point, okay? After that 5 or 10 minutes, I go, one of the things I like to do on here is to tell you a little bit about me so that you can get a sense of who I am and whether you're going to be able to work with me. At that point, I tell them my qualifying story. As I was saying to the girls before, with my qualifying story, this first 5 to 10 minutes where I'm taking notes, I have a pretty good idea of where they need to go. And so I can eliminate parts of my qualifying story if they don't need to hear that part. Or if they have trauma, I will go a little bit more deep into some of the trauma that I've experienced. I never talk particulars. I will do it here in a minute when we do the roll call. But I do things like at 3, I had a surgery. At 6, I was diagnosed hyperactive. At 6, I was given Ritalin. At 8, my mother almost died. I was also sexually abused. My brother fell off the high dive. You see how I'm just going title, basically. I'm not going into any detail about it. Sometimes, like if I have an addict, I'll say, I went to Canada, my cousins thought I should learn how to drink. smoke, and so they gave me all this beer, and then they gave me all these cigarettes, and I got sick. My cousin said to me, here's a cigarette you'll like, and I took one hit off, and my whole body went, and my addiction was born. It's literally how I say it to them. From there, at 17, my dad kicked me out. That's it. From there, my dad kicked me out at 17. From there, my dad died at 24. It took me 2 years to get sober. Do you see what I mean by the qualifying story? I'm just going over the highlights. Then when I finish that, usually I can tell by the look on their face how interested they are. And they're pretty much sold for me most of the time at that. And then I go, what I'd like to do now, if it's okay with you, is explain to you a little bit about how the mind works. I'm not going to make it too complicated. Okay, and so then I talk to them about from the time that we're in the third trimester up until 7, our mind is like a little sponge, it's absorbing everything. We continue to absorb. We have a filing cabinet in the mind that files every single thing that happens to us. And it puts flags on it. Like when I was at home as a kid making mud pies with my brothers, it's got a green flag and it's way back here in the back. But when my dad used to beat the shit out of me, it's right up here in the front with the red flag. And any time the images, sounds, sensations, smells, or taste are similar, my mind goes into fight, flight, or freeze. And then at that point, I take my hand and I go, let me just show you what I mean by that. If this fist were your mind, this would be your frontal lobe, or what you're listening to me with. Back here is the cerebellum, or your long-term memory. When I peel our skull back, here you have the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. We call that the emotional brain. Attached to the emotional brain are 2 little organs called amygdala. They're about the size of my little fingernail. And they're in charge of the fight, flight, freeze response. So when you come across a situation that has images, sound, and notice how I'm slowing down now. Images, sounds, sensations, smells, taste, or thoughts that are similar to anything that's being held in that filing cabinet, in 0.007th of a millisecond, your brain goes bing. The blood drains from your frontal lobe, drains from your extremities, starts going to your major organs. You've got 73 chemicals coursing through your body, and you are now in fight, flight, or freeze. Or fawn, yes. Okay, and so as I'm doing this, they're watching me going, is that what's been happening my whole life? I'm like, that's it, puppy. It's my little thing. I say it to my clients all the time when we start working. I go, puppy. So once I've explained that, I say to them, what I do in my work is I ask you all of these questions. My sessions are 2 hours long. I spend an hour asking you questions. I'm not looking for the right answer. I'm looking for how your brain has set up keeping you safe. Because our brain's primary focus is to keep this body alive. And so when I'm asking all these questions, I am like a detective trying to work out what your brain is doing. After an hour, I pretty much have the patterns. Then we're going to use a couple different techniques that will help take the emotional charge offline, and we can shift how you perceive that situation. Once we've shifted how you perceive that situation, that filing cabinet of the mind gets a green flag, and it doesn't get pulled up again. Do you have any questions? So is that making sense to you guys? Yeah. So once I've done that, they go, you've just told, not all the time, but most of the time, you've just told me why my life is such a mess. And I was like, it's fascinating, isn't it? You thought it was you, but really, it's just your brain trying to keep you safe. Now, and usually they'll go at that point, well, how many sessions do you think I'll need? And I go, well, I don't know how long the piece of string is yet. It won't be until I get in there and first start asking the questions that I can have an idea. But what I can tell you is I have certain packages. And then I go through my package prices and I tell them, if you start with the 3-session package and we see that we need 6 or 10, then I'm going to prorate the packages so that you're paying the lowest price all the way through. So it's completely, I'll take it, no, I don't want you to make a decision today. I just want us to get to know each other. What we're going to do is when we finish this call, I want you to take some time, think about it, speak to your partner, whatever you would like to do. I'm gonna send you a new client questionnaire. And if you wanna go ahead after you've had some time to think about it, you fill out the questionnaire, it'll take you to the coaching agreement, it will take you to picking the package, and then you can book a session. That's pretty much
So you wait for all of that to the very last moment.
very end, but
I like that.
I teach, so first I find out what's going on for them. And if, once I've been doing this, I don't think they're following me, I will take an example from the notes. I'll go, see, because people,
They need it personalized.
Yeah.
yes, if it's personalized or stories. So if I've been given a story, I'll go, for example, you know, when you fell off your bike and your dad yelled at you, and now every time you try and do something new, you start to feel that anxiety. And they're like, yeah. I go, well, that's what is happening is this, because of the response you received back then, and you've long forgotten about it. But what we want to do is take the emotional charge off of that, and then we flip it. Any questions?
I'm just, thank you for explaining that, because when I don't know the practitioner, and the only way I can get to that practitioner is by package. There is no discovery call. And if you go, I just even want to have a test, like, have a session with you, and then I end up buying the whole package, because that's the only way I can get to the person. And then either halfway through or more than halfway through, I'm like, oh gosh, you're crazy, I can't go. I was like, and then I waste the other sessions, literally, because I realized you wasn't a good fit. We're not a good fit.
You're not a good fit. And I have, and when that has happened to me, especially in the discovery call, and I know in the discovery call we're not going to be a good fit, sometimes it's simply languaging, okay? If their languaging is so far different than mine, and I have to spend too much time thinking about it, but I go, oh, you know what? Leslie uses that languaging. I'm going to go, what I'd like to do is, as much as I'd like to help you, I have another practitioner who's a very good friend of mine who I think would be a better fit for you. Would you like me to give you their number? Okay, and then if they go, well, I really want to work with you, I go, okay, how about we do 1 or 2 calls and see how it goes? And they pick the 3-session package. Have I ever refunded money to people with that? Yes, I have. Only once, but yes, I have. When 90% of the time, and so I mean, I have a 95% close rate. Most of the time, if we don't close, I don't close on that or convert on that, whatever language you want to use. It's because I haven't seen them as a fit, and I've sent them somewhere else, or they've come from somewhere else, and I'm too far different from what they were used to.
I'm interested in the collective opinions about this. This is first stepping back into the whole, let's do this. And the 2 things I just wrote down is something that I've done. I give them an experience that they can take along. And I tell them that these are tools for you to use. So it's not so much about this, which is a really cool thing, and how the mechanics of it works, and how all the work that I can do. It's not that. It's let's see if I can give you an experience of what I'm talking about. And that, in fact, happened. A person who is one of my cleaning people who comes in and in tears for something for a long time. I said, and anger about her husband. And I said, let's stop here. Let's just do this experiment and see how it goes. And we tapped it. And during that time, as you guys are all familiar with, she melted. Her face melted. She let it go. It felt different. She thought about it in a different way. So the experience is in her body, and it's very small. And said, remember, this is something that you can take with you. You've got the tools right here. You embody what we talked about, but it's not a description of my process.
Mhm.
It's not a description. Any. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I started my discoveries that way and didn't get as many people. I used to do exactly what you're talking about. And I was taught to do it that way. And if I am face to face with somebody,
Yes,
I
that's what this is.
absolutely will. Absolutely, I will give them the experience. But over Zoom, and especially when I've taken those first 5 minutes of notes, I usually have an idea of how deep things go, and I'm like, if I give them experience, I am then more than a half an hour in.
Oh, that
Yes.
long.
Yeah, it can
This
take
can
more
take
than
long.
half an hour. Now, I definitely teach them that these are tools that they take with them. I definitely explain to them after
Okay.
the very first session that they are the ones, I give them homework to tap. But a lot of times, what I have found with all the clients that I have is they want to know, how am I different from everybody else they've been to? Because usually they've been to so many other people, and they're like, yeah, I've heard la 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 la. And so if I can give them experience, especially in person, I will. I think you're absolutely right with that. But over the years that I've been doing this, what I have found is this, and again, I'm not saying you guys need to do it this way. I'm just saying this is how I do it, and this is where I get the most conversions. What I have found, now also it's the type of people I'm attracting, and I want to own that, because I do attract a lot of people that have trauma, a lot of people that happen to be what I call auditory digital, and they want to know the hows, they want to know the mechanics. And so what's important for each of you is to work out what's the type of person you want to attract, you are attracting, and then how do you modify your discovery call to fit that. Does that make sense?
A lot of it makes sense.
Yes.
Can I say?
Yeah.
I had a client who, there was a lot of childhood trauma, and she was consistently telling me that she was suicidal. I worked with her for almost a year, and we finally, I took a weekend, and she and I went, actually we went camping. I tapped with her for 72 hours straight. When she left, she was like, oh my God, I feel so good. Da, 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 da. She got to work the next day, called me, and she goes, no, it's all gone. I said, well, what happened? She goes, well, I started thinking about my dad did this and my dad did that. And I realized at that point, she was way beyond anything that I could do. And I said, sweetie, you really need to get professional help. This is beyond what I can do. Because I care about you, because I know you, I'm going to tell you, I can't work with you unless you are now going to also work with a professional. Because I said, I'm afraid that you're going to hurt yourself, and I can't handle that. I said, I care too much about you. It matters to me that you live. And what we're doing isn't working. And the other thing that I'll tell clients when I work with them is, my goal is not to have you coming back to me for everything. My goal is to give you the tools that you don't need me anymore. Unless it's huge and just...
What that is they have found, it's a person who found out they can get their needs met if they are powerless. So they go to Rebecca, and I can't do da-da-da-da-da until they have sucked Rebecca dry, and then they go, oh, well, Rebecca was gonna help me, but she couldn't, so now I'm gonna go to Melanie, Rebecca tried, and all I need, I know you're the one, I know you will be the one that can help me, right? And they just go from person to person to person to person.
And the other thing is, don't become friends with your clients until after you're done with them.
And then I want to
Because it
talk,
clouds everything.
the other thing I want to talk about that I do differently, I'm going to own it right here and now, than Faster of 10. I do tell my clients that the goal is that they don't need me, but I have found that it's really important that once, especially with some of my trauma clients, once I've cleaned up the trauma, they don't know where to go, they need coaching. And I do coach. So I can tell you right now on my books, I have I have 2 people that I've worked with for 3 years. I've got 2 people that I've worked with for 2 years. Am I stringing them along? No. We got to a certain point, I was like, okay, you guys have got this. Well, we'd really like you to coach us. Okay. What's that?
We'd really like you to what?
Coach.
Oh,
Coach. They wanted the accountability.
okay.
So I go, okay. Mainly because the first person I agreed to do this with, you guys have heard me talk about this client, 33 surgeries from the time she was 3 till the time she was 17. So she missed all the milestones. So by the time she found me, she'd been doing traditional EFT for a while. She thought she knew everything. It was funny. She sent me this really nasty email after our first session. And I was like, okay.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah, so sorry you feel that way. Anyway, we have a great relationship. She's about to get married, and they've invited me to the vows because the transformation in her life since she's been working with me. But when she first started dating the guy she was married, she's now married. She had no clue. She didn't ever date. She didn't, do you know what I mean? She had no reference points for any of that. And so, you know, my job has been, each week she comes on, we do an intake. I go, okay, so what have you done about this? What have you done about this? What have you done about this? Okay, this week, this is where I want your focus to be. And what have you learned from that? And like, I personally really don't think she needs me anymore. She's done so well. I think they're well on their way, but they don't want to stop coaching yet. So, but there is a time when I mark the difference. So there's a time when I'm helping them overcome the trauma, and I reach a point and go, now, you do know how to tap, you do know how to aim, you do know how to do all this. We can keep going and I can coach you, or we can end here.
Do you introduce a different package? Is that like a different price, or you just continue? Oh, gotcha.
Continue on. So I had one girl came to me, she's been working with me for 2 years. Her name is Miranda. I just love her. She went to Greece and did a level 1 in Greece. And she came back, not that Miranda, another Miranda, just so you know, I know that. This is an Australian girl, just to clarify. And she,
I'm gonna keep my eyes and ears open for this Miranda. You're Miranda.
What?
I think everybody at this table knows which Miranda she's referring to.
Yeah.
Anyway, she came back, we probably did 6 sessions. She works in a mining company, and she's what's the word when you're purchasing things? She's in procurement. And so she had just started looking for a new job, and she wanted to move somewhere else. And so we got to that point, and I said, I think we've pretty much cleaned up all. And the other thing, she was Seventh-day Adventist, and so when she first came to me, I used to call her my little church mouse. You know, she was frightened of everything. And if you met her today, she's CEO now. Like, she's like, bam.
Gosh.
And it's been great to watch the transformation. So we got to that six or seven session. I said, I think we're pretty much done. She goes, oh, no, we're not. She goes, I really like the work we've done, and can we just keep it on a coaching level? And I went, sure we can.
People need mentors.
Yeah, and so how it works now with her, we'll do maybe 2 coaching calls, and then we'll do a tapping call. And we'll do 2 more coaching calls, and we might do a tapping call. Or if something comes up, we'll do a tapping call. I say that because I used to argue with Mr. Smith about the fact that we're going to go in and clean everything up. And I go, well, it doesn't really work that quickly. And B, you clean everything up, and if people haven't known anything different, what are they supposed to do? They need coaching. If this is all they've ever known, like for me, if anxiety was all I ever knew, how do I start to step into that confidence? What do I need to learn about confidence? Who's gonna teach me about confidence?
That's practice.
And it's practice,
Yeah,
definitely.
so that's, I mean, from what
Hmm.
it's interesting, I have to translate a lot of this into